Good day, students. Welcome to our video lesson about biological macromolecules. I'll be discussing the four general types of macromolecules, the basic chemical building blocks from which all organisms are assembled. I am Mr. Gerald Desmartos, STEM Teacher 3 of Cainta Senior High School. After going through this video lesson, you are expected to first distinguish between each biomolecule, second, summarize the general characteristics of each biomolecule, and third, relate the structures of these biomolecules with their properties. But first, let us take a look on a sample nutrition fact table usually found at the back of our food packages. In these food labels, 3 out of 4 molecules are present. What do you think is the first one? If you guessed carbohydrates, then you are correct. Ano pa? Fat. Yes. And the last one is protein. No? If you guess these three, you already identified 3 out of 4 macromolecules. Later on, we will identify the last one and why it isn't found on nutrition fact table. Okay? So as you guessed it, there are the 3 biological macromolecules are carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, and the last one is the nucleic acid. Before going deeper, let's first discuss the fundamental reason why these macromolecules were formed in the first place. Okay, that is because of the sixth element on the periodic table, the one dubbed as the element of life, carbon. Okay? So the chemistry of life is largely the chemistry of the element carbon. Alam natin na pinakamaraming compound sa katawan ay water, about 65%. Of the remainder, 91% is only 4 elements, carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, and nitrogen. Of these 4, carbon is the largest at 53%. No? So carbon atoms often serve as the backbone to which oxygen, hydrogen, and nitrogen are connected. In your basic chemistry, you may know that carbon has 6 protons, making its atomic number 6. It has also 6 electrons, 4 of which are at the outermost energy level. So carbon is so important because it is the lightest element that can make up to 4 bonds at the same time. No? So kasi nga, apat yung kanyang valence electron, kaya niyang mag-connect with other elements hanggang sa 4 na beses, including bond with itself, which give rise to the formation of other molecules. So when carbons are being connected with other molecules, it could form rings, such as in benzene, straight chain, such as in glucose, and branched chain, such as in valine. So in essence, carbon can form millions of different large and complex molecules, and it can easily bond with other molecules in triple, double, and single bond. Okay? So let's check first this figure. How many different units make up this necklace? If you say 6, then you are correct. The individual units or beads in that figure can be applied to macromolecules and can be called as monomers. Okay? So, monomer is the building block of polymer. And polymers are simply the chain of monomers. So, it came from the word mono, meaning one. So monomer meaning 1 unit and polymer meaning many unit. No? So please take note of these words for we will encounter them later on. So polymer could be naturally occurring or synthetic compound consisting of large series of repeated monomers. No? Sometimes these polymers are disassembled into its monomer parts in the process of hydrolysis, no? Kapag naghihiwa-hiwalay yung mga monomer parts ng isang mahabang polymer, ang term or ang process kung saan siya nag-undergo ay hydrolysis. Example, nabi-breakdown si starch into glucose monomers, ang proseso ay hydrolysis. May kabaligtaran yan, yung dehydration. It is used to connect monomers together to make polymers. Halimbawa, yung glucose monomers naman nag-combine into starch. Okay? Again, these two terms, hydrolysis and dehydration, we will encounter more of them later on. So, macromolecules are natural polymers. We also have examples of synthetic polymers such as nylon, plastics, styrofoams, and others. Okay? So, we also have to take down the term macro, meaning big. So, when we say macromolecules, it means big molecules. Okay? Let's first discuss carbohydrates. It is simply known as the energy-rich sugars and starches. So carbohydrate is also known as saccharide. It is composed of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. The monomer of carbohydrate is monosaccharide or glucose. This is an example of glucose. No? As you can see, glucose is a 6-carbon sugar which is found in dextrose at hospitals and in our blood. Okay? So carbohydrates can be classified either as simple or complex. So under ng simple sugar, meron tayong monosaccharide and disaccharide. Sa complex sugar naman, meron tayong polysaccharide. The simplest monosaccharide that we have here is a 3-carbon sugar, which is a glyceraldehyde. Glyceraldehyde serves as the building block to form larger molecules. No? The other one, the 5-carbon sugar, is deoxyribose, the sugar found in nucleic acids. Okay, so we also have other samples of 6-carbon sugar. We have glucose, fructose, and galactose. They are all sugars with 6 carbons. Still, they are classified as monosaccharides. Glucose, as I have said earlier, can be found in hospitals, and galactose can be found in buttermilk and cheese. Fructose, on the other hand, is the main sweetener of honey and in many ripe fruits. Okay? So, the next classification of carbohydrate is disaccharide. So, it's a combination of two sugar units. For example, we have sucrose. Sucrose is glucose plus fructose. Lactose is glucose plus galactose, and maltose is glucose plus glucose. Okay? We also have examples here. Sucrose, yan yung table sugar na inihahalo natin bilang pampalasa, pampatamis sa ating gatas, sa ating kape. Okay? Lactose is also known as the milk sugar. Maltose is also known as the malt sugar. Okay? Next, the other classification of carbohydrates is polysaccharide. Okay? So these are macromolecules made up of monosaccharide subunits. One example is starch. Starch is a polysaccharide used by plants to store energy. It consists entirely of glucose molecules linked one after another in long chains. No? Potatoes, cassavas, sweet potatoes are rich in starch. So two examples of starches are amylose and amylopectin. Okay? They are found in plants. And this is an example of starch that can be located in chloroplast and other organelles. No? So, si plants, naisip niyang mas cool kapag nakapackage na si glucose. No? So, gumawa siya ng isang package ng glucose at tinawag niya yung starch. Para every time na kakailanganin niya sa kanyang paglaki, no? Sa pag-metabolize niya ng kanyang mga processes, meron siyang pagkukunan ng malaking source of energy, which is the starch. Okay? So, syempre, kung may starch ang plants, si animals, including humans, meron din silang version ng starch. Yun ay tinatawag na glycogen. No? It is a highly branched polymer of glucose with many side branches, usually found in the liver and muscle tissues. kumpara sa starch, mas mahaba siya, no? Mas malaki or mas maraming branch chain ang meron sa kanya. So ibig sabihin mas maraming stored energy ang components ng glycogen. So humans and other vertebrates store excess food energy as glycogen in the liver and muscle cells. So kakailangan, kukunin na lang natin yon or ng mga animals kung kailangan natin sila kailangan. Okay? Another type or example of polysaccharide is cellulose. As you can see, this is an example of magnified cellulose from leaves, no? So sa leaves, aside from cell membrane, meron silang cell wall, yung mga plants, no, yung cells nila. Meron din silang cell wall. It's an added protection kasi nga since hindi sila nakakagalaw, no, hindi sila umaalis sa kanilang kinakatayuan, itong mga plants na to, kailangan nila ng added protection. So aside from cell membrane to protect the cells, meron din silang cell wall, no? So nakaayos siya into cellulose fiber na tinatawag na microfibrils. Pero kapag zinom mo siya, ang makikita mo pa rin ay isang or mga nakahilerang glucose units. Okay? Itong cellulose na to ay indigestible by most animals except for ruminants. Napansin nyo ba yung kapag nakakita kayo ng mga ruminants like cow, carabao, goats, no? Usually, parang from time to time lagi silang ngumunguya, no? Ang proseso niyan, meron silang maliit na sac, marami silang maliliit na sac sa tiyan, no? Called rumens. Tapos meron sa mga rumens na yon, meron doong mga bacteria na kayang mag-digest ng cellulose, no? So napupunta yun sa rumens, tapos minsan bumabalik yun sa bibig para anuhin nila, kainin nila or nguyain nila ulit. Okay? Kasi meron na iyong konting enzyme para talagang madurog yung cellulose. Okay? So tayo hindi natin kaya i-digest ang cellulose. Now, chitin, which might be considered to be modified form of cellulose, is the principal structure or structure of the external skeletons of lobster, no? Such as this example, crabs and other insects like scorpions, no? Glucose rin siya pero may nadagdag sa kanyang nitrogen group, no? So again, very few organisms can digest chitin. One function of carbohydrate is it serves as the primary energy source of the human body. Okay? There's no denying that carbohydrates from food is essential. Pero may mga diet daw na nagre-restrict sa atin na kumain ng carbs. Sabi nila pampapayat. Okay? Pero safe ba yon? There are actually two different views on keto diet. We will feature a short story about keto diet, the diet that promotes less carb intake and more on proteins and fats. Sabi dito sa nakita kong page sa Keto Diet Philippines, no, kung makikita niyo yung maliit na parang box dito, the very successful ketogenic diet or more popularly known as the keto diet or low carb diet is about losing weight by consuming plenty of protein and fats but fewer carbs. Pero again, in Facebook, may nakita rin akong isang site na nagsasabi na keto diet is based on misinformation, no? So sinabi pa na itong writer ay isang cardiologist, no? Sabi dito, cardiologist urges patients not to follow keto diet, calling it a mistake. So ano ba talaga ang totoo? This is where you could apply your knowledge in media and information literacy, where you should critique what you saw in the internet. Kasi nga, you may fall on trap of misinformation or fake news. If you really wanted to try keto diet, you should do your own research siguro na medyo talagang extensive and maybe para mas may assurance ka, ask a health expert like doctors, no, kung anong bagay na diet sa'yo. Kasi nga, ang rami-rami na rin klase ng diet. South Beach diet, no? yan, keto diet, mayroon pang paleo diet. So, iba-iba. So, para hindi ka ma-fall into trap of fake news or misinformation, dapat nagre-research ka ng gusto. At napag-aralan natin yan sa media and information literacy. Okay? Next. So, aside from as energy source of the human body, it provides structural materials for the cell. Yun na yung sinabi natin about chitin and cellulose. Okay? So, for the structures and properties, though differences in molecular structure, carbohydrates are able to serve the very different functions of energy storage like starch and glycogen. No? So, we all know na kanina naipakita natin, sobrang dami ng bonds ng meron sa starch at sa glycogen. And since carbohydrates contain large number of bonds, carbs are very good energy source for most organisms. And also structural support and protection kasi nga yung pinagsama-sama yung glucose molecules, no, ginawa silang polymer, nagkaroon tayo ng version ng cellulose at ng chitin. Okay? So, quick check. Okay? What do you think is the elemental composition of carbohydrates? We have three, right? The carbon, hydrogen, and the oxygen. How about its monomer? Monosaccharides or glucose. And examples, rice, cereal, potatoes, fruits, pasta. And for the function, what is the function of carbohydrates? There are two functions. Main energy source of the body and as structural support for the plants and okay? So that's it for carbohydrates. Let's move on to the next, the lipids, or simply the energy-rich hydrocarbon chain molecules. Yan. Paborito natin yan. Di ba? So, yan. Ano nangyari? Okay, so eating too many unhealthy fats such as saturated fats can be dangerous to your health, and it could lead to heart disease, cancer, and obesity. No? So sa PN Health class, tinuturuan tayo na isa sa mga tips para ma-maintain or ma-manage natin yung stress natin is to eat well or have a balanced diet. So dapat mas marami kang kinakaing leafy vegetables and grains, no? Fruits, and less yung mga fats or yung mga oils na katulad nito. So ayun, dapat kumain ng gulay para ang buhay ay para sumigla ang buhay. Okay. Okay, next. According to Tasho in 2017, 18 million Filipinos are obese and overweight. So in 2016, this epidemic cost the country between $500 million and $1 billion, or equivalent to 4% to 8% of its healthcare spending. So naalala ko, I've conducted a phenomenological research about lived experiences of obese and overweight students in Cainta Senior High School, and I found out na generally nalulungkot sila kapag sila ay nabubuli, no? Medyo yung mga characteristics na hirap sila gumalaw kapag merong mga physical activities kasi nga mainit agad sa katawan. Okay, so kailangan nating iwasan yung mga sobrang daming taba sa ating pagkain. Okay? So lipids are loosely defined groups of molecules with one main characteristic. Okay? They are insoluble in water. Now, it is the same with carbohydrates. It is composed of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Pero ang difference niya, yung lipid molecule, mas maraming energy per gram yung content niya kaysa carbohydrates. Around twice as much. Okay? And yung carbohydrates, mas mabilis silang ma-digest kesa sa lipids. Okay? So yun yung difference ng dalawa. Now, the monomer of lipids are glycerol and fatty acids. As you can see, this is a process of dehydration in which fat molecules are being formed from glycerol and 3 fatty acids. No, these fat molecules are non-polar molecules, meaning they are hydrophobic. Takot sila sa tubig. Alam natin yan kapag naguhugas tayo ng masisebong mga baunan. Okay? Lalo na kapag plastic yung baunan. Hirap tayong tanggalin yung sebo or yung mga mantika, di ba? Okay. So, there are 5 classifications of lipids kasi yung triglyceride may dalawa siyang klase, yung fats and oil. So, we have fats, oil, which are under triglyceride. We have phospholipid, we have wax, and we have steroid. Okay. Let's discuss first the fat. Fat refers to solid triglyceride, usually from animal sources such as meat, milk, butter, margarine, and cheese. No, usually these animal fats contain saturated fatty acids. And kapag mas maraming saturated fatty acids ang nasa pagkain natin, yun yung sinasabi natin kanina na pwede kang magkaroon ng heart disease or mas expose ka sa obesity or heart diseases. Okay? And another type of triglyceride is the oil. Oil refers to liquid triglycerides from plant sources. Ito mas healthy to sa fat, no? So this oil or liquid triglycerides are usually composed of unsaturated fatty acids. Examples are olive oil, corn oil, sunflower oil, and soybean oil. Yan. Another type of lipid is phospholipid. So phospholipid in cell membranes are made up of two or phosphate group and 2 fatty acid chains. It is an integral part of cell membrane, no, found in our cells, and phospholipid phospholipids in cell membranes are also called phospholipid bilayer. This is an example of a figure of phospholipid bilayer. So, phospholipid bilayers are critical components of cell membranes. Kung makikita nyo, meron tayong example ng cell dyan, ayan, nasaan makikita yung phospholipid bilayer nandun sa cell membrane. No? Yung ulo, itong ulo ay water-loving, ibig sabihin, okay lang na ma-expose sila sa tubig, no? Hydrophilic. And yung mga ano nila, itong mga tails nila, yan yung mga non-polar tails. Kung makikita nyo, they are composed of fatty acid. So again, takot sila sa tubig. So kapag may water sa paligid, tinatago nila ang sarili na papunta sa loob. Kaya makikita nyo yan, nasa gitna sila. Okay? So, syempre, ang ganda ng function yan sa cell. Parang silang gwardya. Sila yung sumasala ng pumapasok at lumalabas sa cell. So meron silang mga channel para dun sa mga proteins na papasok sa cell at may mga daanan sila. So talagang sila yung nagsisilbing guard para hindi basta-basta makapasok yung mga unwanted material papunta sa cell at hindi rin lumabas yung mga organelle na nasa cell. Okay? So, another type of lipid is steroid. Steroids are chemical signals such as sex hormones. They are more complex structures than other lipids and a greater diversity of functions such as cholesterol. Ito ay example ng mga steroids natin, cholesterol, testosterone, and estrogen. Kala natin si cholesterol, bad siya, no? Kapag narinig natin cholesterol, parang pangit agad ang ating pandinig. Pero, or sa pandinig natin, negative agad siya. Diba? Pero, hindi natin alam, si cholesterol ay siya yung precursor. Ibig sabihin, siya yung main ingredient na kailangan para ma-synthesize yung mga hormones na kailangan natin like testosterone and estrogen. Okay? Itong example natin ay nagpapakita ng testosterone dito sa peacock. Okay? Because of the actions of testosterone, nagpapakita siya ng gilas dun sa kanyang sa pihen, no? Para alam niyo na yun, baka magkaroon ng mating later. Kaya nagpapakitang gilas siya. And one parang mating parang practices nila, no? Ay papakita nila ang kanilang magandang pakpak. So, testosterone for male animals and estrogen for female animals. So, lahat ng ito ay considered as steroids. The last type of lipid is wax, no? Waxes are long-chain fatty acids bonded to a long-chain alcohol. It has high melting point and waterproof siya, resistant siya sa pagkabulok or degradation. Waxes are found in nature as coatings on leaves and stems. So, kung nakikita niyo dyan sa example, dito sa parang bunga, no? Nagpe-prevent siya ng excessive water loss. Okay? Kaya meron siyang parang nakabalot na oil or parang, yun nga, yung wax na sinasabi. Sa tao, yan, yung earwax, ayan, version yan ng waxes sa katawan ng tao. And yan sa kabila, yung beeswax, another waxes na meron sa nature. Okay? And yung gabi, dahon ng gabi, di ba? Nakita na tayo na kapag naulanan ang dahon ng gabi or nilagyan natin ng tubig, hindi siya basta-basta nababasa. Parang naglalaro lang, nabubuo yung water dun sa leaves ng gabi, right? Okay. So, one of the many functions of fat is to provide insulation, such as in this animal, and also energy storage. Okay. Lipids also serve other functions such as material for cell membrane, just like the one we discussed a while ago, aid in digestion, and as signal molecules. And for the structures and properties of lipids, again, just like carbohydrates, properties of lipids largely depend on the structure. No, lipids are nonpolar. Ibig sabihin, hydrophobic nga. Kaya nagagawa niya ang kanyang function sa cell membrane and yung waterproofing na sinasabi natin. Also, triglycerides contain large number of bonds, making them ideal for high energy storage. Okay. So, let's check our understanding about lipids. What are the composition of lipids? Elemental composition. Again, just like carbs, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. Monomer. There are two monomers, glycerol and fatty acids. How about examples? There are technically 5 examples. Fats, oils, ano pa? Phospholipids, steroids, and waxes. Okay, the function, long-term storage of energy in the body and insulation and many others. Okay? So let's proceed to the third one, proteins. So proteins are the chemistry performers of the cell. Many scientists believe that proteins are the first macromolecules formed in the early eras of our planet. Okay? So proteins are basic molecular building blocks of cells and all parts of animals. Amino acids are the monomers of proteins, and virtually all proteins found in animals are made from only 21 different amino acids. So, kapag tumingin ka sa salamin, lahat ng nakikita mo, may protina dyan. Okay? Balat, kuko, buhok, protina yan. Okay? So, most proteins are most functionally diverse class of biological molecules. And protein diversity is the basis of diversity of life. No? Kasi nga, dahil yung 21 amino acids na yon, mga monomers ng protein ay pwedeng mag-arrange into different sequences. Kaya nagkakaroon ng iba't ibang diversity ang protein. Protein is composed of elements carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. These are examples of proteins and their figures. Collagen, no? Found in strings of a tennis racket, no? From gut tissue, usually galing sa mga sheep yan, no? Or parang mga tupa. Fibrin, this is an scanning electron micrograph of a blood clot, magnified 3,000 times. Yan, fibrin yan. Example rin ng protein. Another, keratin, na present rin sa ating human hair and human nails. Silk, a spider found in the spider web. Silk is one of the strongest natural fiber found in nature. Okay. So these are functions and examples of protein. Proteins can be support proteins. Like keratin, yun nga yung sinabi natin, makes up hair and nails. Collagen, support many of the body structures such as tendons and skin. Fibroin is found in silk and considered as one of the strongest natural fibers. Proteins can also serve as enzyme. Almost all enzymes are proteins. Lipase help in digestion of fats. Pepsin help in breaking down proteins into peptides or smaller units. Sucrase, also called invertase, help in digestion of sugars and starches. Bigyan ko kayo ng magandang trivia. Di ba kapag kumakain ka ng tinapay, for example, bun, no? Or loaf bread, dun pa lang, na-experience mo na yung isang action ng enzyme. Yung enzyme na meron sa ating mga laway, which is amylase, no? Or salivary amylase. So, na-experience mo agad yung action ng enzyme na yon kapag kumakain ka ng tinapay. Paano? Kapag kumain ka ng tinapay at nalagyan na siya ng laway, di ba? Wag mo masyadong i-imagine kasi medyo gross, di ba? Pero kapag nalagyan na siya ng laway, medyo tumatamis, di ba? Napapansin nyo ba yun? Medyo nagiging manamis-namis yung tinapay kapag kumakain tayo. So, ibig sabihin nun, nag-act agad si amylase, binibreakdown niya agad yung carbohydrates into its glucose monomer, no, units. So nagiging manamis-namis siya. Ang alam natin, ang carbohydrates, ang ano niyan, sugar talaga yan. Kaya nagiging manamis-namis ang tinapay kahit walang palaman. Okay? Proteins could act as transport proteins, no? For example, hemoglobin. It could also act as defense proteins such as the case of antibodies, and storage proteins such as myoglobin. What is the difference between hemoglobin and myoglobin? Balikan natin yung grade 9 or grade 10 science nyo. 'Di ba? Hemoglobin ang dahilan bakit mapula ang red blood cell. Kasi meron siyang iron. Okay? So, si hemoglobin ang nagdadala ng oxygen sa tissues, no? Sa tissues ng katawan galing sa lungs. Ngayon, kapag na-deliver niya na 'yon sa mga tissues ng katawan, kinukuha siya ni myoglobin. Kinukuha ni myoglobin yung oxygen na meron sa hemoglobin para i-store niya, at kung kailan kailangan ng katawan, no? Doon siya pwedeng gamitin. So nandoon na lang siya sa myoglobin. Okay? So yan. So also proteins can be regulatory proteins such as hormones. Hormones influence the metabolism of cells such as insulin, no? Familiar tayo dyan. Testosterone, okay? Somatotrophin or yung growth hormone, and meron tinatawag na Dracula hormone or yung melatonin. Yung nagko-control ng ating sleep cycle. Yun yung tinatawag na melatonin or Dracula hormone. Dracula hormone kasi nagre-release siya kapag medyo madilim ang paligid, no? Kapag nagsisimula naman dumilim ang paligid, nagkakaroon na ng release of melatonin or Dracula hormone. Kapag may ilaw naman or nagsisimula ng lumiwanag, nagkakaroon na ng inhibition of the production of melatonin. Now, proteins can also serve as motion proteins like in muscle, no? Such as actin and myosin. They are needed for the contraction of muscles. Okay, so again, just like lipids and carbs, the shape of protein is critical to its functions and properties. No? So, in primary structure, nakikita ba? Ayan, nandito tayo sa gilid, no? Unahin natin yung primary structure. The amino acids are in linear sequence connected with a peptide bond. No? Just like that, isang diretso lang siya. Parang nagwi-wave-wave. Okay? So, that is our primary structure. Ano-ano nga ba itong amino acid para magets natin kung paano na-form yung primary structure? There are 21. Ayan sila. 21 amino acids. And one basic example of primary structure of amino acid, meaning yung parang isang diretso lang ng ganun, ay yung glutathione. No? Na lagi natin naririnig yung glutathione. It's an antioxidant naturally found in human cells that neutralizes free radicals. No? Inaalis niya yung mga free radicals sa katawan. Tapos, isang side effect niya ay pumuputi. No? Pumuputi yung taong nagtitake ng glutathione. Okay, supplement. Glutathione supplement. Okay, so etong glutathione na ito, meron siyang primary structure, meaning yung glutamate, cysteine, and glycine na mga amino acid niya, nakahilera lang siya. Linear. No, linear na nakahilera. Kaya meron siyang primary structure. Next is yung secondary structure. Minsan, dahil sa sobrang haba ng sequence ng polypeptide, no, itong polypeptide na yan, yung parang ahas dyan sa taas, yung ibang part, naa-attract siya dun sa ibang part. Kaya nabubuo yung dalawang type ng secondary structure. Pwedeng parang twisted ladder, parang alpha helix, no? Or pwede siyang pleats or beta sheets or beta pleated sheets, no? So parang yun sa uniform ng mga sa skirt ng mga babae, no, sa uniform nila, 'di ba? May tinatawag dong pleats, parang ganun ang formation ng secondary structure. Okay. So, example ng proteins na may secondary structure ay yung keratin and yung myoglobin. Okay. So, for tertiary structure, nagsasama-sama si alpha helix sheets at si beta pleated sheet structure. Nagsasama-sama sila para maka-form ng 3D structure. Yun yung kanyang tertiary structure. Okay? So, paano nangyayari ito? Minsan, ang mga proteins na ito ay may hydrophobic parts or yung mga takot sa tubig at may mga hydrophilic parts or yung mga gusto ng tubig. So, yung mga gusto ng tubig, sila yung nasa labas, tapos pumupunta sa loob yung mga takot sa tubig. No, yung mga hydrophobic parts, kaya na-form itong 3D structure niya. Yun yung tertiary structure. Karamihan ng proteins nasa primary, secondary, and tertiary structure lang. Okay? Pero may mga proteins na binubuo ng maraming subunits or more than 4 polypeptide subunits. So, ang nangyayari, na-form nila kapag nagsasama-sama yung mga polypeptide subunits na yun, na-form nila yung quaternary structure or the fourth structure or fourth level of protein organization. So, minsan, sa dami ng folding, kita niyo yan yung quaternary structure, di ba? Sobrang dami ng folds. Sa dami ng folding na nangyayari sa protina, nagkakaroon siya ng substitution. And hindi maganda sa protein yung merong substitution or parang namali ng lagay ng amino acid. For example, yung case ng sickle cell anemia. Sickle cell anemia is an irregularity sa shape ng hemoglobin. Usually, di ba, pag normal, ang hemoglobin ay biconcave. Kapag meron kang sickle cell anemia, instead na parang pabilog, na parang palubog yung gitna ng hemoglobin mo, para siyang nagiging itsurang karit, no? Parang sickle, yan ang sabi doon. Parang panggapas siya, parang karit, no? Parang buwan, ganyan. Ganun nagiging style niya or shape niya. And delikado siya kapag nagta-travel siya sa body kasi pwede siyang mag-clog sa mga arteries. Okay? So, ano ang problema doon? Sa 600 amino acids, around 600 amino acids na meron sa hemoglobin, isa lang doon ang napalitan or nagkaroon or isa lang doon ang nagkaroon ng substitution. Imagine kung gaano kalaki ang impact ng protein substitution kapag hindi nangyari yung dapat ay sequence ng amino acids. So, it will take another video lesson para i-discuss yung mga related disease kapag pinag-usapan na yung protein folding. Minsan kasi hindi siya nagiging successful and maraming disease ang kaakibat niyan. And hindi natin kayang i-discuss yun dito sa ating video lesson. Okay? So next, ayan. Itong levels of protein organization, kapag naintindihan natin siya, yan yung mag-explain kung paano related si structure at properties pagdating sa protein, no? So, again, proteins have 21 different amino acids which can be arranged in any order. So, proteins also have 4 levels of structure: primary, secondary, tertiary, and quaternary. And an alteration in any of these levels alters the function of the protein. Yon, sinabi natin kanina, sa sickle cell anemia. This allows for a large variety of function because of those structures, okay? So, let's go back. A short review about protein. Ano ang missing elemental composition? Nitrogen, okay, correct. How about this? What is the monomer of protein? Amino acid. Okay, and the function, there are lots of functions. Ito lang yung sample functions: storage, signals, structural, contractile, defensive enzyme, transports, and receptors. Okay. Next, the last macromolecule is the information molecules or the nucleic acids. Nucleic acids are the information storage devices of cells, just as this disk or tape stores that tapes that stores information in the computer. Pwede rin siyang blueprint, no? Parang ang nucleic acid, may i-compare rin natin sa blueprint kung saan yung information ng building ay nandun para sa mga engineers and architects. And mapa, no? Para siyang mapa na nandun yung information about a certain place na ginagamit ng mga turista. Okay, so doon siya ma-compare yung information molecule natin. So, nucleic acids play an essential role not only in storage but also in transfer and expression of genetic information. It was discovered by Friedrich Mischer in 1868. No? At first, he was puzzled that an unknown substance in white blood cells did not resemble the first 3 macromolecules. No? So, sabi niya parang hindi ito carbohydrates, hindi rin naman protein, and hindi lipids. So, he was able to separate this or isolate the substance from the nucleus at tinawag niya yung nuclein. Ito ay may protina at nucleic acid. Ayan. So, because of further experimentations, Mischer found out that the nucleic acids contain carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and phosphorus. Yan yung mga elemental composition niya. And ang monomer ng nucleic acid ay nucleotide. Examples, DNA and RNA. So, to better illustrate the nucleotide or the monomer of nucleic acids, let's take DNA as an example. DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid, and it's a double-stranded helical spiral known as double helix or twisted ladder. Later, makakita kayo na example kung ano ba itong twisted ladder na sinasabi. It serves as genetic information center and fondly called as blueprint of life. It is found in the chromosomes of the cell. So, this is the DNA location. So, we have the human cell. In the cell, there is a nucleus. Inside the nucleus, you can find the chromosome. Ayan. Ayan, no? Kung makikita natin, parang ititrace natin, dun sa chromosome, nandoon ang DNA. Double helix siya, parang twisted ladder, no? Meron kang hagdan, no? Pihitin mo siya. Yan, meron kang twisted ladder or double helix. So, humans contain 46 chromosomes, kung ano-ano na sinasabi ko. 46 chromosomes, no? And yung sex cell contain only 23 kasi kapag alam natin na ang man para magkaroon ng another organism kailangan ng woman. So 23 from man, 23 from woman, ayan, magkakaroon na ng 46 another organism yan, yan yung baby, di ba? Okay. Next. This is the 3 components of nucleotide. We have phosphate group, sugar, and nitrogenous base. So let's discuss this further. Again, the nucleotide is composed of 3 important elements, the phosphate group or important parts, phosphate group, sugar, and nitrogenous base. So phosphate group is the energy provider during DNA synthesis. Sugar, on the other hand, is the carrier of nitrogenous base. These two make up the backbone of the DNA. Okay, tingnan natin yung example. Ayan. Etong example. Sugar, phosphate, backbone of the DNA. Yan ang kanilang pinaka function sa DNA molecule. So, we have alternating phosphate, sugar, phosphate, sugar, phosphate, sugar, phosphate, sugar. And then, sa sugar, nakakabit yung mga nitrogenous base. Okay. So, ano ba tong mga nitrogenous base? Ito yung mga talagang nagbibitbit ng maliliit na information tungkol dun sa DNA. Okay? So, the nitrogenous bases found in DNA are adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine. So, kapag nagsama-sama itong ATGC, no? Nagkaroon sila ng sequencing, tinitake sila or nire-read sila in 3, yung tinatawag na codons, no? So each codon specifies certain amino acid. Now, kapag yun nga, balikan natin yung napag-aralan natin kanina sa protina, kapag nagsama-sama itong amino acid, ang nabubuo nyo ay protina. Tama? So, yung proteins na ngayon ang mag-workout sa chemistry ng cell or sa chemistry ng human body, tulad ng sinabi natin kanina. Okay? So, dito sa example, nasaan ang mga nitrogenous base? Ayan, nasa gitna sila. Parang sila yung steps ng ladder na sinasabi. Okay? So, ang term sa kanila, meron tinatawag na complementary base pairing, no? Dapat si adenine kay thymine lang i-pair. Hindi pwedeng kay cytosine kasi magiging problema 'yon. And si cytosine dapat kay guanine lang maipi-pair. Okay? Hindi pwedeng kay thymine kasi magkakaroon rin ng problema. So, what are the nucleotides then in this example? So in this example, we have phosphate group, sugar, and guanine. That's one nucleotide. Another nucleotide, phosphate, sugar, and cytosine. That's another second nucleotide. Third nucleotide, phosphate, sugar, and adenine. And the last one, phosphate, sugar, and thymine. So nagbabago-bago ang klase ng nucleotide depende sa klase ng nitrogenous base na bitbit nila. Again, isa pang silip, ano ang itsura ng DNA kapag naka-arrange siya sa double helix at saan siya makikita? Ayan, tingnan nyo mabuti. Nandun sa gilid, yung parang backbone niya, yung sugar and phosphate, tapos yung steps niya, yun yung mga nitrogenous bases. Okay? Another example of nucleic acid is the RNA. Kung si DNA may jowa, no? Dalawa kasi sila, si RNA mag-isa lang siya, no? Single siya. It's a single-stranded molecule and it serves as the it serves primarily in assembly of proteins, no? Siya talaga ang tagadala or tagagawa ng protina based dun sa inuutos ni nucleic acid. Diba? Or ni DNA. So, it can be found in nucleus and nagta-travel siya papunta sa cytoplasm, papunta dun sa ribosomes kasi dun makikita yung ibang types of RNA, no? So, the nitrogenous bases found in RNA are adenine, uracil, guanine, and cytosine. Ayan. Instead of thymine, no, meron napalitan siya ng uracil. So, si adenine, magpe-pair lang dapat siya kay uracil. At si guanine, ganun pa din, magpe-pair lang siya kay cytosine. Okay. So, this is the location of RNA in a plant cell. Okay. So, nandun siya sa, ito yung nucleus. Kita nyo dyan, nandyan yung nucleus. Ayan, may symbol naman or may label. And then, doon sa loob niya, makikita yung DNA and then ang movement ng RNA palabas papunta sa ribosome hanggang gumawa siya ng protina. Okay? So this is the single strand of RNA. Again, phosphate sugar ang backbone niya, alternating, and ang bitbit niya, ang bitbit ng isang nucleotide, phosphate sugar guanine. Phosphate sugar uracil instead of thymine, no, kasi RNA na siya. Phosphate sugar adenine and phosphate sugar cytosine. Those are 4 nucleotides of RNA. So the structure and properties of nucleic acids is best seen when we compare RNA and DNA. So si DNA, nag-stay siya sa nucleus, nandun lang siya, no? Hindi siya pwedeng lumabas kasi maraming pwedeng mangyari kapag nasa labas siya ng nucleus, dapat overprotected siya doon. And si RNA, nagli-leave siya sa nucleus para makapagdala siya ng messages about protein synthesis or ma-perform niya yung kanyang function, which is protein synthesis. Pareho silang may sugar phosphate backbone, no? Pareho ang kanilang structural formula, and yung base pairing ng dalawang yan ay said to be rigid. Hindi dapat napapalitan. Kung sino yung kapartner nino, dapat yun yung talagang magkakaroon lang ng pairing. Minsan, because a person, for example, is exposed to radiation or some other toxic chemicals, nagkakaroon ng pagkakamali dito sa pairing na to, no? Yun yung tinatawag na mutation sa tao. Sa mga plants, okay lang yung mutation. For example, dumami ng husto yung for example, leaves ng isang tree because of mutation, okay lang kasi hindi masyadong napapansin. Pero kapag nangyari sa tao yung mutation, masyadong obvious yung mga mutation na nangyayari sa tao. For example, nadagdagan ng isang daliri ang kamay, or nadagdagan ng isang paa, yung normal na dalawang paa ng tao. So doon nakikita yung sobrang obvious na evidence ng mutation, no? Kaya nga isa sa mga reason kung bakit hindi ine-expose sa ultrasound ang isang buntis, no? Lalo na kapag nasa first trimester, kasi pwedeng ma-expose sa harmful material yung developing fetus. Okay? Baka magkaroon ng mutation. Okay. Again, related to its structure and properties, nucleic acids are well suited to store information in the repeating sequences of their base pairs. They are also structured to split and replicate easily, allowing the genetic information to be easily passed on to offspring. Let's have an example or short review. Ayan, what are the two missing elemental composition of nucleic acids? Okay, nucleus and phosphorus. How about its monomer? Nucleotide. And example, DNA and RNA. How about function? DNA is for storage and transfer of genetic material, and RNA is for protein synthesis. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Natapos tayo. Medyo mahaba yon. Alam ko medyo marami pa akong hindi na-discuss. Pero eto na lang muna for now. And if you have any questions, you may ask me in my Facebook account at Super sciencesensei, or you may send me email at gerald.marto01@deped.gov.ph. You may also ask your teacher and message them through your GCs in modular classes. Okay? Thanks for watching.